Weather for Weather Geeks. It's the Valley's most in-depth weather forecast. It's the midweek edition. We had a nice autumn day for a change today. We haven't had many days this autumn where it's been sunny and dry and pleasant. A lot of cloudy days, a lot of rainy days this fall. A fairly muted foliage season, even though we've had some pretty decent colors over the last week or so. A lot of trees got stripped of their leaves yesterday thanks to the wind, and the wind was still a factor today, although not nearly as much as yesterday. We had a wind gust of 47 at the Youngstown Warren Airport yesterday. We topped out around 28 to 30 this afternoon. So breezy, yes, but it was overall one of our nicer days we've had in a while. Temperatures were not as warm as yesterday, but still we got right to the average today, right at 52. Notice with a clear sky this evening how fast temperatures have fallen. We went from 52, let me get my head out of the way here. We went from 52 at 3 o'clock to 39 at 7 o'clock. That's a pretty sharp drop-off. Good radiational cooling conditions this evening with a diminishing wind and a clear sky overhead. And compared to 24 hours ago in the 7 o'clock hour, it is 12 degrees cooler than election night across the valley. So we hit 52 today, right at the average. The first week of November has been warmer than average by 3.2 degrees. Now, we're heading into a cooler pattern starting tomorrow that may last as much as 10 days. And so these numbers of compared to average are going to change quite a bit over the next 10 days or so. I'll talk a little bit more about the longer range in just a second. In the meantime, the weather scenario across the lower 48 states is pretty quiet this evening. Not a lot of barn burners out there, temperature-wise. No surprise, it's colder off to our north and west near the U.S.-Canadian border. It's in the upper teens and lower 20s. We expect temperatures here locally to end up pretty close to freezing by the end of the night tonight. Easy to pick out where our stalled front is off to the south when we look at the dew points. It's still summertime air mass in New Orleans and Houston and Mobile, heading over towards Tallahassee and Jacksonville, but then north of the front, a much drier air mass in Little Rock and Tupelo. Why am I showing you this? This is pretty far away from our area. Well, along this front, an area of low pressure is going to form late in the day tomorrow and quickly come north and quickly strengthen, and that will have a big impact on our weather as we head into the day on Friday. So a pretty tranquil day tomorrow. It's going to be a little bit cloudier than today, cooler than today. We won't make it to the 50s tomorrow. I think we'll stop in the mid-40s tomorrow afternoon. So let's talk about Friday. I think rain and mixed precipitation will push in before daybreak Friday morning. Now, I mentioned mixed precipitation, especially from, say, 224 or maybe I-80 on north. Yeah, there can be some wet snowflakes as this pushes in Friday morning. Don't think it's really going to stick to much except maybe your windshield, maybe your deck. That should be about it. Maybe a little candy coating in some spots. But for the vast majority of Friday, this will just be a cold rain. Just a crummy day coming up on Friday with a gusty, chilly breeze as well. The rain should taper off from west to east as we get into the afternoon. We got 3 local high school football playoff games Friday evening. There's more games actually on Saturday. We're probably dry Friday evening. Probably dry Saturday as well, with the exception of some morning and midday flurries and snow showers. This will be the first kind of legit lake effect event of the season so far. It'll be fairly minor in the grand scheme of things. There'll be much bigger ones for places such as Erie and Buffalo, but still, this will be enough to give some accumulations to the primary snowbelts of southwestern New York, northwestern PA, and parts of northeast Ohio as well, especially once you get over into Geauga County and some of the higher terrain out there. I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up with a slushy inch or two during the day on Saturday. But by far and away, the bigger accumulations should probably be from just east of Erie up through Chautauqua County, New York, southern parts of Erie County, New York. That's kind of the southern suburbs of Buffalo. Someone might get half a foot of snow or more out of this lake effect event. Locally, again, cosmetic coatings should just about do it. Bigger story Saturday, honestly, is going to be the wind and the cold. Saturday morning wind chills down in the teens, and they probably don't get above the mid-20s Saturday afternoon. Then I'm going to fast forward to the middle of next week, and I think these numbers might be a little bit too high by, let me back this up to Wednesday morning. I could see where these numbers are actually more like single digits, lower teens instead of upper teens. For the wind chills Wednesday morning. That should be the coldest day of next week. A week from today on Wednesday. Actual air temperatures may not get above freezing, and those wind chills will be no fun as well. I've gotten a few comments on Facebook, I think on Twitter as well, about rumors of a big winter storm middle of next week. Maybe they saw something on the Weather Channel or something. Odds do not favor any sort of major winter storm here middle of next week. Could we see some snowflakes? Yes. The northeastern U.S., parts of New England, I think stand a pretty decent chance of seeing at least a glancing blow from a pretty good area of low pressure moving up the East Coast next week, but I don't think it's very likely that we see any sort of impactful snowstorm here next week. It's going to be windy and cold. That is something we are very confident about. All right. Our winter forecast tomorrow evening, 21 news at 6 and 11. That's the short version that'll run a few minutes. In a format kind of like Weather Geeks, I'll do a much longer version that'll be posted on WFMJ.com, the Storm Tracker 21 app, my Facebook, the station Facebook page, the Storm Tracker Facebook page, my Twitter account, my YouTube channel. That's the version that you really want to watch if you want a lot of detail, if you want to get into the kind of why the forecast is what it is. And I'll be showing you this graphic tomorrow evening. I've been dropping little nuggets here and there on Weather Geeks this week in preparation for my big reveal of the winter forecast tomorrow evening. One of the major drivers of weather patterns across the northern hemisphere this winter is going to be El Nino, but it's not going to be a kind of typical El Nino. A typical El Nino sees the warmest waters compared to average banked up against South America like this. We're heading into a different flavor of El Nino called a Modoki El Nino, named after someone named Modoki who discovered this back many decades ago. This is basically where El Nino is still in effect, but the warmest waters compared to average are not against South America, but more towards the central Pacific. So what? What do the water temperatures have to do with how much snow and how cold it's going to be here? Well, these warm waters can alter the jet stream configuration across the northern hemisphere. And when the El Nino is centered out here, that can alter the overall jet stream pattern across the U.S. And hint, hint, typically colder winters in the eastern U.S. result from this flavor of El Nino compared to a regular kind of standard El Nino. When we have a standard El Nino, especially if it's strong, that usually correlates to a warm winter across the eastern U.S. But that's not the kind of El Nino we're going to have this year. Real quick, I promised you a few more words in the longer range, aside from that cold snap next week. As we head towards Thanksgiving week, odds favor it warming up, maybe even significantly compared to next week, but it's not a slam dunk as of yet. There's some modeling that would suggest that the cold lingers into Thanksgiving week. Right now, I'm leaning towards the idea that a fairly substantial warm-up occurs the week of Thanksgiving, and if that warm-up occurs, it's more than likely going to continue into at least the first part of December. Talk a lot more about December, January, and February on tomorrow evening's winter forecast, which will take the place of a regular Weather for Weather Geeks video. Thanks as always for watching, everyone. Have a great Wednesday night.